that sound. Getting that stuff to you with that sound.
Okay, so we can start with a prayer. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and Paramahansa Yogananda, and saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. We invoke your presence into today's session. We invite your wisdom, your guidance, your love and joy, that everyone may feel your presence with them always. Om, peace, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vernin G podcast. I'm your host. I have with me here today a very special dear friend to me, very special guest, someone that I've been trying to have on the show for quite some time, and he's had a really rigorous and busy schedule, so I'm very excited to announce my next guest to you. He's born in Las Vegas, graduated at Yale University in mechanical engineering. He's worked multiple jobs, working as a stuntman. He's worked with mentally challenged people, and that goes to show that he has a deep journey that's centered around uplifting humanity and serving people. He's also met Michael Jackson on the side note, had a very interesting and diverse upbringing. He's been the head of Ananda India Monastery from 2007 to 2015. He, together with Devashti, have set up the home study course in India in 2016, which has taught thousands of people to meditate, including myself. He has been on the path of self-realization for many years now, since 2002. And my guest is none other than Nayaswami Shankara.
Thank you, Devendra. I'm very happy to be here.
So I think that introduction really just scratches the surface of who you are and what you've achieved and what you've accomplished over the years. So that being said, I wanted to ask you, can you please share a bit about yourself and just a bit about your upbringing and what's your upbringing and teenage years been like?
Sure. So, as you said, I was born in Las Vegas, which is actually called Sin City. Where it's known for gambling and alcohol and all kinds of things. And growing up in that environment, those things actually seemed kind of normal. It just seemed like that's what all adults did, and that was how people were supposed to relax. But as I kind of grew up and out of Las Vegas and went on to college, I started to realize that that there's much more to life, that people could find other ways of relaxing or finding joy, finding peace. And actually, when I went to college, I really wanted just to make a lot of money. My parents both were school teachers, and they had dedicated their lives towards helping others, children. And I thought that's nice at that point in my life, but it would be better if I had a lot of money and could have a lot of experiences. But when I went away to college and met many people who had a lot of money, I realized that money in and of itself wasn't going to bring pure happiness, it wasn't going to bring joy. And I then really started searching deeply after I graduated from college to know what is the meaning of life, why are we here, what is true happiness, can people be happy all the time, these type of things. So I had a good childhood, I had a good upbringing. I love my parents to this day, they've always been kind and loving, but I was always just kind of searching for more and wanted to know the true answers to life and the true meaning of life.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. That's a very profound answer. And I think you came at that at a very early age, that realization, because I've come to that point, and probably not even to that depth, but many, many years later than that. So that's just a very interesting thing that people find themselves on a journey at different phases in their lives. But That's really rich, and that's an early age to come to that realization. Now, interesting enough, mechanical engineering is a very well sought after field. And obviously, Yale University is one of the top universities in the world. And I know you mentioned that that aspect of caring for people and helping people was very dear to you at that point in your time. But how did you balance like being a youngster and trying to, or like trying to find fulfillment out of the academia field? Because that's very difficult to balance. Yeah.
Sure. Yes. I guess that in some ways I always have had the nature of wanting to help other people. But after I graduated from Yale, that actually became stronger and stronger in me. Uh, Going into Yale, I think I was a little bit more self-centered and was thinking about my own career and money and this type of thing. But in that environment, amongst other people who had a lot of money, I realized that wasn't going to work, and I started thinking more and more of other people. So I think that really was a progression that happened, and to be honest, I think it's still happening. It is. I can't say that it's not, because each one of us, we have a certain amount of ego, of a desire to do things that will fulfill us personally, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But as we grow spiritually, we realize the less that we think of ourselves and the more we think of others, the happier we naturally are. And a force greater than ourselves comes in and helps take care of our lives. It's obviously not that simple. It's not like we could just say, "Oh, I'm not going to eat anymore, and hopefully God will feed me."
Yes.
He won't. That we have to make the money and we have to lift the spoon to our own mouth. But there's a deeper aspect. We begin to realize that it's He, or sometimes I like to think of God as she, the Divine Mother, is doing it through us. And this becomes a very beautiful understanding as we grow spiritually. So no, I wasn't just born like that. And one other point I wanted to make here is that yes, I did start having these realizations young. I do attribute that to good karma from past lives. I don't think this is the first lifetime that I've been on the spiritual path. But wherever people kind of start waking up or wanting to know more about life or more about spirituality, it's perfect. That Paramahansa Yogananda, who's in this picture here, who is my guru, he had a disciple who I believe was in her 80s and started doing spiritual practices very late in life, in her 80s, but that she found enlightenment just in a few short years at the end of her life. So it doesn't really matter when we come into spirituality, it's really about the intensity that we give at that moment.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Again, so many gems you dropped, you touched on so many different stuff that I could go into and create multiple threads about karma and past lives, which is something we'll touch on. And I just wanted to say very briefly that just as a segue into our next topic, the aspect of your qualification in mechanical engineering and the skills you learned there certainly didn't go to waste, because we'll come to learn shortly there was multiple projects that you was involved in to better humanity, and that skills definitely served you well in that regard. Also, one other thing that I wanted to point out and say was, through these various stages, and I've heard something this morning just in a webinar that we were part of, that something that's fascinating is this gift that you give to others, but you receive in return as well. And that's part of serving, that's the highest or a high form of fulfillment in return. So,
That's very true. Go
so
ahead.
stepping into today's sort of, let's say, not topic, but something that I really wanted to discuss with you is the term self-realization. And I think it's a term or word that's getting a lot of publicity, a lot of recognition, and people are searching for something along the lines of this. So would you mind sharing with me and perhaps our viewers what you think of, for me, of the meaning of self-realization?
Sure. That we have to, each human being needs to think about who he or she truly is. And I like to think of it of if God is the ocean, that each one of us, we are a wave on the ocean. So God has manifested himself through each one of us, and that the wave on the ocean cannot exist without the ocean. In fact, it's made of the ocean. There's a saint in India named Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and he used to say, a doll made of salt went to the ocean to measure the depths of the ocean. So you can imagine this little doll made out of salt, went deep diving in the ocean to figure out how deep is the ocean. And of course the doll is going to melt and become again one with the ocean. And so self-realization is about us remembering who we truly are. And we pile heaps of definitions upon ourselves. We think, I'm South African, I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm this, I'm that. Actually, we're time travelers. In a little portion of time, we each might get, 50, 60, 100 years, whatever. Obviously, we can move around in space, but most people are pretty bound by time. But then we'll reincarnate again, and if we hate someone who's Japanese, okay, maybe you'll be born then next time in Japan to learn the lessons that we should all love one another and not hate each other. So we're not these bundle of self-definitions that we think we are. We're actually something much deeper, but it takes getting quiet, getting still, calming our mind, calming our feelings, going deep within ourselves, and doing some real searching, asking ourselves again and again, who am I? And trying to think about that and figure it out. But the essence of this is that every human being actually is made in the image and likeness of God. That on some level, all of us are one with God. But most human beings run away from that fact. They simply don't want to think about it. They want to be separate and just kind of do their own thing. But after a lot of pain and suffering, we begin to think, that's not working, and is there a way I can return back to source, to who I truly am, to infinite peace, which we can talk about, but lives within each one of us. And the interesting part about this really is defining God, because we can clearly say that self-realization means for each one of us to slowly wake up and remember who we truly are, that we're one with God. But then the question becomes, well, okay, if that's so, well, who is God? What is God? Which is also a very fascinating question. One more point on this is just that most souls don't just kind of snap and wake up and realize. That slowly this realization comes, and realization is a good word because we cannot solve this as an intellectual puzzle. That it goes beyond the intellect, and it's a state of awareness, a state of consciousness that we have to learn to get back into. So I just wanted to point out that this is not an intellectual thing. If we read enough books, that we will begin to realize it's a state of increasing our awareness to infinity, really, and remembering who we truly are.
Thank you for that. And I think again many gems there, but something I wanted to point out that you raised was through much suffering. Sometimes we start to go on this journey to want to seek, and it seems like across all of these areas, like suffering's at the core of it. In order for you to want to seek God, to turn the tables, to make a change, to get out of this current situation. I often speak with people, especially here in South Africa, and a lot of people are like joining courses about like how to be joyous, how to be blissful, how to be happy all the time, or reading books how to be happy. There was this girl that I was chatting to as well, was asking me like, how can you be happy? What does it mean to be happy? Because people are trying to define this stuff because of the suffering that people's been on. So I think that fair level of suffering definitely does get you to want to turn the table. Like from personal experience for myself, through some of the challenges I faced in my life, probably not as serious, but for me it's a challenge anyway. But it's made me to want to change, and that's led to me seeking and starting to want to go on a journey. And I'll share as we go through it about my experience of how I got on the actual path of self-realization. But definitely suffering's at the core of that. So I just wanted to link back to what you were saying just now. So
I would love to hear
Okay.
about your path to self-realization. And yes, suffering is usually at the core for all human beings. But in the end, it turns out to be a good
Absolutely.
thing.
So let me share a bit about that. So I come from a very academic family, a very achieved family, not just in terms of success defined by whatever definition of success, whether it be financial or well off and stuff like that, but very sporting, all around family, a close, united family, quite a large family, and each well accomplished in each of their own domains of whether it be work or sports and so forth. Spiritual, of course. And I've been like sort of guided by a cousin of mine, sort of almost a guru and a teacher that's been helping me through various phases in life and helping share and impart wisdom. And you really don't notice those subtle changes, but when you look back at yourself many years on, you start to see those nuances, those differences, and how you've changed and become better as a human being. So, and he basically mentioned to me that, I've seen you change and evolve over the years, and you're definitely where you're supposed to be. And he said to me that, often when somebody puts you in a direction, you sort of, my personal experience, I run the other way. When I'm forced into something, I run out the door. In terms of like, you should do this or follow this sort of stuff. And so he said to me, actually, you should read this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, by Paramahansa Yogananda some time ago. And it was in my subconscious because I've heard it, but I didn't really take any action. And then he said it once more. And very funny, I saw on Instagram, as I was scrolling through, I saw the advert appear and I was like, okay, I'm not sure what it's about, but he said I should do it. Let me try. It's $200 in South African currency, so not a lot. If it doesn't work out, then that's fine. At least I tried it. And I registered for the course. And this is the book here, by the way, so I just kept a copy of it. Uh, so I registered for the first course, Lessons in Meditation, and right off the bat, this was through Ananda, a foundation which will come through a bit later on. But I started to read some of the writings that was there. I started to feel the presence of the people that I was involved with, some of the teachers running the courses, and just that support structure. Right off the bat, I knew that was exactly what I needed. It was like starting to bring about or answer questions that I didn't know, one that I had, but also long lasting questions that I couldn't have answered. It was some sort of fulfillment deeper than, as you said, the intellect, because years prior to that, I went through an intellectual growth spurt of where I was like taking in all of this knowledge from books and learning how to present myself better and to speak better, to make a lateral move in my career, to sort of open up yourself to various different domains. And I started to achieve a bit of success in that regard. That was all great, but I think again, when you're not ready for the guru, you get these lesser teachers in the form of books and media content that you consume that prepares you for that next step. And certainly, without a doubt, those were preparing me for my next step, which is starting to walk on the path of self-realization. At that point in time, during the first course, I was still experiencing up and downs, not as bad downs, but it wasn't the highs that I wanted. I knew I was aspiring to achieve to try and be better on a much rapid and higher scale than that. So one morning I was traveling in my car and I just finished doing lessons in meditation course and I wasn't feeling too good about myself in the morning, just traveling to work. And I had some of the chants of Swami Kriyananda playing in the car and I was listening to it and straight off the bat I was thinking like, should I enroll in level 2 or should I try and perfect level 1? Me trying to be the perfectionist that I thought I was. And that song I think just reassured me that, even if you don't absorb 100% of it, just stick on it and you on something good here because like this energy that I'm getting from the people, the vibrations or the just people just willing ever to help and genuine pure people with no other objective, and that's what I really appreciated. So I stuck along, I did the courses, finished level 2, I did level 3 and level 4, and we'll come to the next very precious step afterwards to that. But that's initially how I got on self-realization and definitely the best decision that I've made in my life. And I'll tell you some of my challenges a bit later that I thought I experienced. And it was very simply answered. And yeah, I'm at a really good point now where stuff are being answered and just at a good space of exactly where I want to be. Things just fall into place. And I'll share depth on it shortly. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Okay. Well, no, your journey is really wonderful. It's nice to hear about, it's nice to understand your path of growth. It's very interesting to me to uh, think. In some ways, I also can be or have been maybe more in the past perfectionist. We can never perfect this world. I think we should all strive to make ourselves better, but perhaps both you and I are learning higher ways now uh, to be, or different realms kind of to grow in, to be better human beings that we didn't know about in the past. And for me, that's a very enjoyable space to have new kind of vistas, new realms to grow into, versus just trying to get better grades in school or continually get another degree from university or something like that. Um, eh, because the path of self-realization is, in America we say infinite, in India we say infinite, but there's no end to it, and there's no end to self-realization. That Paramahansa Yogananda said that someone asked him, is there any end to human evolution? That obviously as human beings we can evolve, we can become better and better in many different arenas. So someone asked him, is there any end to evolution? And he said, no end. You go on evolving until you become infinite, which is awesome. And just for our viewers here, that doesn't mean that our body's going to somehow expand and we're going to get really fat or something. That means that in consciousness that we are going to expand until we become omnipresent in all of creation, it's really thrilling to me. That's very inspiring that human beings can become in consciousness omnipresent in all of creation.
Thank you. That's very rich again. So, on the spiritual path, right, towards, let's say, self-realization. So, I think we very easily confuse the meanings of, let's say, spirituality, a spiritual practice, and a religious practice. So, that's just one thing I wanted to ask you. And then the second part to that question is it possible then for somebody to want to walk a spiritual journey and still live a normal life?
Okay, those are two very important questions. Let's take the first one first. So I'll talk a little bit about the difference of spirituality versus being in a religion. A religion usually has quite fixed boundaries that you have to believe in this certain way. You can't believe outside of this. You have to come and do a certain amount of practices or whatever. And I think that the world has kind of had enough of that, and that the world is turning away from religion. And it's almost like a teenager that kind of rebels against what its parents tell it to do. Or I should say he or she, but whatever. But then in time, that child might kind of see the good in what the parents were telling him to do, but also he'll now know it in his own way, and he might have a higher expression of doing that than his parents had. So I could give a really concrete example of that, but I'm not going to. Let's just say that right now the world is looking for kind of the answer to this question: does it work? And at least religion's not a terrible thing. It doesn't. At least it gives some people something to believe in some practices. So it's not like I'm 100% against it. I just feel that it can be stifling, and that honestly, a lot of the religions from the past have kind of become corrupted in that. And take Christianity or Buddhism or whatever the case may be, the master comes and teaches something, but then after thousands of years, people start saying, no, really what he meant was this, or I think he meant this, or things are cut out of the Bible, and people don't really have a true understanding anymore. And it becomes a fixed, rigid dogma, and it's no longer alive, it's no longer fluid, it's no longer joyful. It's just this thing you have to do, or else people tell you you're a bad person and you might burn in hell forever. But that just cannot be. A finite effect cannot have an infinite consequence. I'm sorry, a finite cause cannot have an infinite effect, is what I was trying to say there. So we're living in a new age, and I think it's great that people should explore spirituality and go deeper into it and deeper into their own understanding, that it needs to make sense to them, and not only just because everybody else is doing it or because a particular book said this is what you should do, but it needs to be real for each individual. Another thing in this new age that we're living in is, I feel the individual, his own spiritual growth is going to become more important than just signing up with kind of the masses and doing what the masses do, and then hopefully somehow we're saved. And that in both Christianity and in India, where I'm currently staying, basically people pay a priest. It's like you go to the church, you give some money, and then it's like you tell the priest, well, you do the work and just tell me I'm saved, and then I feel good. But as we grow as a planet in spirituality, people are going to understand that no, each one of us has to do the work. And it's more of the priest's job to kind of give you the homework papers or explain how it works. But then each one of us needs to go into our own home, our own bedroom, our own puja room, whatever it is, and conduct the experiments ourselves to see if God is within, if there are certain practices that we can do as individuals to feel that we are saved right now. Forget about the future or when we die. Do we feel that God loves us right now? And can we do certain practices to feel God's love right now? And the answer is yes, those practices do exist, and there are certain branches of spirituality that can teach people whatever it is that they want to learn, as deep as they want to go on the path of spirituality. So that was the first question you asked there, and I have to admit I've forgotten the second question because I went on and on there. What was that second
That's
part
okay.
there
So the
again?
second part of the question is, can someone want to be on the spiritual path or have that journey and still live a normal life?
Excellent. Right. Okay. So, absolutely, that we don't need to think that to be spiritual that we need to run away from our family or from our current duties and go, I don't know, on a 1 month fast off in some desert or some high, mountain cave or something. That actually true spirituality is one in daily human existence, and it's a very healthy thing to have a balanced life, a job that works for us, that we feel that we're serving humanity through whatever that job is that we are doing. Having a good family life is an important thing. That's another way of loving God, that we're loving God in our family members. Doing normal healthy exercise and having a normal healthy diet, and figuring out then also how to have a meditation practice or other spiritual disciplines and how to weave those all together, and not one of them is more important than the others, and learning to balance them and understanding how they all go together. That's really the mark of a true spiritual person, not someone who's just run away from life and done some thing like weird for a little while. There's a saying that any fool can handle a crisis. It's the day-to-day living that is difficult. And the people that can do the day-to-day living well and be happy every day because they're integrating their spiritual practices and their family life and their whatever, exercise and all of that type of thing, those are the real heroes in this world, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. I think that's a lot of wealth to share, wealth of knowledge to share. And I think on that point there, I think let me just share a story as well about myself. So I'm at that point now, having been on the spiritual path for a while, of that same realization or similar realization. And based on your practice and your experiences, you become a lot more sensitive and mindful in the way you communicate with people. What I'm starting to notice now, and I'm going to say the cause of all of this or how all of this came to be, but I'm definitely at a way in which I'm living toward or striving to live towards higher ideals and living from a place of higher principles. And I can definitely see that expression in my life with my interactions with family and friends, even with just anybody in general, rather, that I'm communicating with, and especially in my work, which I thought would be in isolation to the spiritual practice. So I listened to Dr. Radhika give a talk about spirituality and about yoga specifically and Kriya Yoga, and how you could then take that energy or that vibration that you harness through that practice into your daily life, into your work. How can you remember God in everything that you do? Like a simple meal that you eat, you remember God in it. If you're making, let's say, preparing food for somebody, or even a quick hot drink, like, you give it off with a good energy, a good vibration. Like whatever activity or important work I have to do, I always make sure that I'm in a good mindset, in a good mood. I'm in a settled state, in a calm state, and doing that activity with all of my, let's say, highest vibration that I can possibly put into it. Because I do believe every single thing that you do carries energy, whether it's your work, emails you're sending to somebody, and so that in that regard. Now, you spoke about karma and reincarnation. And you mentioned about, like, this is not the first time that you feel you're on this path, and you've obviously walked this path or spiritual path or similar path in different lifetimes. And I think I read somewhere that's how people's personalities and characters develop through these different cycles of birth and rebirth, these different reincarnations and so forth. So so what happens, let's say, if somebody doesn't reach fulfillment in one lifetime and they have to be born in another lifetime? Basically, just to explain what's your understanding of this karma that people carry and how they reincarnate, very briefly.
Sure. The thing that actually keeps us away from being fully self realized is desire. So I might desire to go eat a carrot after this or something. And so that desire, it's lodged inside of me. It is a karma. It's something that then has to be fulfilled. And actually, in fulfilling it, I might love it and think this is the greatest. If I eat three more carrots, I'm going to be so happy. And if that's the case, that's the type of thing that makes us reincarnate. A strong hatred for it also can make us reincarnate until we learn to just see that this world is neutral. So we're all filled with desires. We become self-realized when we realize that we don't need anything outside of ourselves, that we can actually just sit very still for long periods of time and just be content, that in fact the entire universe is within ourselves. I'm not going to go too deep into that right now, but if we have unfulfilled desires, that is the reason that we reincarnate. Longings and regrets. If we have very deep regrets also, if we feel we really did something wrong, which on one level is great, that we get to come back again and again and become higher versions of our own self according to our own understanding. But, that actually could go on not for like 5 times. It could go on for 5 million times, 50 million times. And there comes a point in every soul's evolution where these words, which are from Paramahansa Yogananda, it becomes something that is anguishing monotony. You just feel like, do I have to eat another carrot again? It's like, okay, I'll do it. It keeps the body healthy, okay. But do I have to do this and this and this? And this longing for something more than just this physical world and all the experiences in this physical world comes. But we do reincarnate. In the beginning, it's a beautiful thing. And we choose our parents, our soul. When we're up in the astral world, we're looking down and we know that there's certain lessons that we need to learn, and so we look for opportunities for certain parents, for certain nationalities, whatever nations to be born into, and then we take that, and from that side, from the other side, astral world, death, call it whatever you want, heaven, hell, that's a whole different set of conversation for us. But we really want the opportunity to come down, to take a physical body. It's a huge opportunity because we get the ability to work off our karma. Yet, as soon as we get here, then often we think, oh, why am I here? And why does this have to happen and that and this? And we forget of what a great blessing life is and what an opportunity it is to have a physical body so that our soul can express itself through it and that we can learn more and more lessons. And there's plenty of proof for reincarnation. There's many books out there, many great stories. One very brief one. There was a boy who was drawing a picture of a World War II, I believe, cockpit, like a fighter plane, the cockpit, all the dials and whatever sticks and all this. And his parents said, "How do you know about all that?" And he was like, "Well, that's who I was in my last lifetime. That's what I did." And it matched exactly. They went and looked up the airplane, and it matched exactly. And he just said, I was with
Mm.
blah, 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 and these were the people and the other fighter pilots or whatever. And there was actual reunion. And the little boy, when he first saw all of these men, they had become very old because he'd had all that time that he needed to reincarnate. And he's, "Oh, you're so old." He couldn't understand that for a little bit because he was still a little boy. But that's just one example. Anybody can Google that, look that up. It's a well-known story, and there's many of them. Look, anything in life, be it reincarnation or whatever, if you really want to understand it and look and search and find, you can find proof for your own self that these things are
Sure.
very true.
I do believe, yeah, there are many stories like that out there that definitely say the same thing that you're mentioning. And just to point out to our viewers and listeners as well, that you sort of come to these realizations at your own pace, or that level of seeking at your own pace. Now, before I get into this next part of it, I wanted to share. So for me, as I was saying, like you mentioned about that anguish that Paramahansa Yogananda spoke about, right? And I think that was something that was happening to me at a period in time when I was doing the courses through Ananda and some of those stuff and wanting to continue on the path of self-realization and Kriya Yoga. So I wanted to then make a change and let's say escape this this hamster wheel that people find themselves in, because a lot of people say that, their life cycle is the same. They wake up, they get dressed, they have something to eat, they get off to work, get back, prepare something, and just, you sort of ask yourself, what's the meaning to life? It surely can't just be that. There sort of needs to be something fulfilling. And I started to get to a point where like I can have the latest tech device or whatever it is. The moment I walk out the store with it, that excitement is gone. It's not lasting. It's just very short periods of time. Now, I went on to do the third course through Ananda, and I did the fourth course. And with each of those courses, just being in the community of people that we're going to explain just now was definitely good for me, was starting to expand my consciousness, was helping me to see things that give me long-lasting joy, was starting to change me about the person that I want to aspire to become, the type of relationships that I want to have with my peers and family, and the type of work that I want to be involved in. And along the way, all those challenges about asking myself, how can I then take this energy into work, and is it possible? And then I started to get the answers to those stuff. So I finished the fourth course, and you, together with a few others from Ananda, were making your way to South Africa for an in-person initiation. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make it at Silver Hills Lodge at that point in time for the initiation. And I said eventually, if God wants me there, it's going to just happen. And just like that, eventually, at the last moment, I decided and I got accommodation and I came through. On the 22nd of April, I drove to the venue and we met in person for the first time after many hours of webinars and that whole experience, just being there with all of you guys and sharing that energy and the vibrations and that special ceremony was definitely life-changing. I've experienced a lot of stuff last year alone. In my personal life, things I've achieved last year, I think 31 milestones I've attributed it to last year that I'm really proud of. And I asked myself, how was I able to achieve that? I know the answer now. After the initiation, that was the single most important moment of my life, especially last year. Let me clarify that. My most important milestone or thing that I could have achieved or accomplished or wanted to get into last year. And the 22nd of April initiation was the turning point in my life, undoubtedly. So that special blessing that you're put onto us after, tuning yourself to the higher masters, self-realized masters, and God was definitely that turning point for me. And that's how I started to feel a turning point in my life. I've been able to do a lot of stuff as a result of that initiation and immersing myself in the spiritual and techniques and practices. So, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
I'm happy to hear that. I believe that is a you're having a similar experience to many others who have been initiated into Kriya Yoga and begin to feel the power of the universe, the power of great souls flowing through them and helping them achieve great things in their lives. So that's wonderful to hear. I very much enjoyed that journey as well. It was a wonderful.
Thank you. And that's also a good testament of channeling the right energy and carrying that energy with you, and then it starts to find that expression in everything. Because like now I have the formula, I know what I need to do if I want to achieve good results, and not just good results, like I want to achieve meaningful results. I want to go out and actually make a difference. I want stuff to work in my favor. You got to raise that energy level. I right away know if I'm not doing something right at the moment, because it just automatically hits me, and I know straight away I'm aware of it. Even like sometimes the conversation you have, you like quite often be tentatively towards slipping to say something, and you'll bring yourself back. And I'm not perfect. I don't do it all the time. Sometimes it still does get, but you remember it and you try to make that difference. And I think over time you start to get a lot better and more attuned. So Kriya Yoga, that's the hot topic here. And I wanted to talk to you about that. So now a lot of people get confused. And so can you please share your understanding of Kriya Yoga and another conventional yoga that people often relate to?
Okay, sure. So the conventional yoga is the yoga postures, technically called hatha yoga, which are dealing with the physical body, which are a good system for making us have a healthy physical body. Nothing wrong with that. But Kriya Yoga is going deeper and working on not only our physical body, but our energy body and our mind as well, and preparing all three of those vehicles, actually they are vehicles for our soul, preparing all of them to express the full potential of God. And if we practice Kriya Yoga properly, and it does take time, it's no, miracle cure. That's something you do in 3 days or something, you'll be God realized. That for most human beings, it's going to take us time, years even, of working with this particular technique. But as those years go on, that we begin to advance spiritually. And basically, it is a breathing technique, but it's more than a breathing technique, because we begin to realize that the energy within our body that is there, it's actually what causes us to breathe, and we can learn to regulate the physical breath by learning to regulate this energy inside. By learning to regulate that energy inside of us, we can learn to regulate and control our mind. And many other spiritual paths out there will say, well, just think positive thoughts. In fact, you were alluding to certain conversations that you might have that, some are uplifting, some might be going down paths that you don't want to go down anymore, which is awesome. You're learning to feel your energy, you're learning to have a higher consciousness, wanting to be surrounded by other, like, higher energy people and not low energy people, and that's a great thing. And anyways, part of that also is for us to learn to control our mind, and Kriya Yoga gives us that ability. Once we have that control, that we can then learn to meditate very, very deeply. Otherwise, people find it difficult. You might take up a mantra, other people might just tell you sit there and just watch your breath. But for most people, if we just sit and watch our breath, our mind starts going all over the place. We physically feel restless. It's not an easy thing. But with the technique of Kriya Yoga, it teaches us to withdraw our life force ever deeper within ourselves, turn off the five senses basically, and focus our energy up at the spiritual eye, and it helps give us deeper states of concentration.
Yeah, thank you for that. And definitely makes sense and resonates with me. I know I've read somewhere that Kriya Yoga is the airplane route to God realization, because the evolution or the how you evolve on the spiritual path is amplified so much by the techniques that's designed by Paramahansa Yogananda, or like made commonly known to people by him. Because I say that because, like, from that initiation that we've had, and not just that initiation, from just being introduced to the courses that Ananda offers, and we're going to discuss what Ananda is shortly, I've noticed a rapid change in myself, because I'm somebody that's constantly changing, learning, evolving, and improving. That's sort of my mantra for life. And I've been able to do that. And when I look at those various stages in my life, it's been brilliant. But looking at the last like 2 years, I can't explain that because it's just been, it feels like, that's why I said my first year of being involved with Kriya Yoga feels like I've been on it for 10 years. And literally, I swear to that statement of myself. Now, something I wanted to say or touch on is we spoke about Kriya Yoga and the impacts and influence that it can have. Now, and I mentioned Ananda countless times. So, would you mind sharing before we get into the actual village part of it for our listeners and viewers' benefit? But can you share like exactly what is Ananda and what does Ananda stand for? What are the sort of goals and ambitions in life? And then your role as being part of Ananda and some of the projects that you are involved in. So, a loaded question. Take your time.
Sure. Okay, so Ananda literally means joy in Sanskrit, and it's a worldwide organization. It was founded by Swami Kriyananda in 1969. There is a physical kind of, they don't like the word headquarters too much because we're very autonomous and each place is its own center, really. So, but anyways, there's a place that has been founded in 1969 called Ananda Village, which is in California. I highly recommend that everyone goes and visits there. It's a cooperative community that's just filled with hundreds of people who are deep meditators, who are all kind to one another, who are all trying to help one another. And you just don't find many places like that on the planet. But Swami Kriyananda, that was one of his missions, to start cooperative communities and models to show the rest of us all over the world how we also can start cooperative communities. But Ananda, more than that, it's kind of a worldwide movement for people who want to dedicate their lives to self-realization, who want to follow the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The founder of Ananda, Swami Kriyananda, I mean, he passed away, but for me, he's still living, so I will say is, Swami Kriyananda is a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, and he really dedicated his entire life towards being a good disciple and trying to do the will of Paramahansa Yogananda. I spent 9.5 years in this incarnation with Swami Kriyananda, and my life really is dedicated towards living up to Swami Kriyananda's ideals, towards being as good of a disciple as he was. I don't know if that's possible, but I want to try to do my best and walk in his footsteps. And so Ananda is a place where we teach people meditation, and that's an important part of what we do, but it's much more than that, because after we learn meditation, that it's important that we practice together. It's important that we show our own selves more than anybody else that this is working, and that we start to work together on all kinds of different projects. Ananda has been involved in many different kinds of projects all over the world, and that in that we feel kindness towards one another. We feel a desire to help one another. You know, you can put a team of 5 people to do some project and they all could be arguing. I'm talking in the world, not necessarily within Ananda. And if they're saying that they meditate, it's like, well, something's not off. You might be, something's off. I mean, you might be like all filled with peace and joy in your meditation room, but then when you come out into the world, like
Yeah.
something's missing. But in Ananda, it's all the pieces that we put them all together, and we fill every aspect of our life with spirituality. And it's really a beautiful way to live. Swami Kriyananda wrote 140 books. I've tried to read every single one of them, and his goal in that was to show that the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda are applicable in every aspect of life, in marriage, in education, in employment, in being a good boss, in diet, everything, like how to die consciously. I mean, how to raise children, everything. Swamiji wrote a book on just about everything, but to show that Master wanted to, Master, I mean, when I say that, I mean Paramahansa Yogananda, came to show this entire planet that we can all live in a much higher and better way, and there's certain ways we can do that. So Ananda, in another way, is just a grand experiment on how we can all, be good people together. Someone asked Swami Kriyananda, why did you create Ananda? And he said, fun. so we can have fun together. And on one hand, he was just kind of being light. I mean, he does, or he does have, kind of big missions to accomplish to help uplift the world's consciousness. But on the other hand, life's not that serious, and that we're all here really just to learn how to live more in joy, which is God's joy, and how to have fun with one another. So, anyways, that's a little bit about Ananda in a nutshell.
Thank you for that. And I think same about that. It maintained that childlike enthusiasm, but also joy. I think is I actually sent that message to somebody today after reading something that was posted on one of the groups that I'm part of. So definitely touches on that. Now I know I should have asked this earlier, but I'm gonna. It's too interesting to not ask now. So it's a bit jumping out of context back into what we were discussing. So when we opened up with a prayer, and obviously I'm used to this, but for our viewers and listeners' benefit, we started off by invoking the presence of Divine Mother and Heavenly Father, God as the mother, and so female and male form, however you look at it, and then the ascended masters, Jesus Christ that you mentioned. And so what I've noticed at Ananda is that mutual respect for various religions or higher masters, ascended masters, and that's twofold and really resonates with me is that respect for others that I really appreciated, because I've been coming from parts of South Africa where there's like conflict between religion, which I don't really like, and I don't see it that way. But so finding that union is very important for me, and I found that at Ananda, number one, and number two, I wasn't aware of like you realizing your light and then sharing that outwardly, like your blessing, then you take and share. I wasn't aware of that, surprisingly, or maybe to my ignorance. I never knew that until with Ananda. And then I realized the emphasis of you starting to aspire to reach your highest potential and then sharing that output in the world. So can you just discuss starting from the Jesus Christ part and about this twofold stuff that I've learned just briefly?
Sure, sure. So, God has many different aspects, and father, mother, friend, beloved, and then God does incarnate through different masters, and we have five particular ones that I named in that prayer in the beginning that are very important to us. It's a lineage, basically, and Jesus Christ is part of that lineage that he was sent by Babaji. Actually, he asked Babaji to send someone to the West to basically help Westerners, and Babaji sent Paramahansa Yogananda according to our teachings, which I obviously believe are true and believe very deeply in. But one of the things that turned me off early on in life about religion was it seemed to cause more fighting than unity. And if God is one, and we're all trying to find God more and more, one would think, and I think this is another difference between spirituality and religion. Religion says, do it my way, or I don't like you, or you're bad, or something. But spirituality says, we are all one. Let's talk about this. Let's not fight about anything. Wise people discuss, and people who are ignorant argue and fight and that kind of thing. And if someone's truly spiritual, two truly spiritual people should be able to sit down and even agree to disagree. Say that, well, I think God's telling us to go left, and you think God's telling us to go right, but that's okay. You go ahead and go right, I'll go left, and it's okay. Let's still coexist and be nice to one another. And so Ananda very much does respect the saints and sages of all religions, that God has incarnated again and again as a fully enlightened being many different times in history, and we need to respect all of that. You use the word respect. That word is so important in human relationships, in all human relationships, husband, wife, father, child, whatever it is, workers, co-workers, bosses, all the thread that makes any of those relationships work is respect. That we have to respect one another, respect differences, and learn to work together. And Ananda really is the epitome of that. Our current Dharmacharya, or worldwide leader, used to, I don't know the details, but I believe he worked for the United Nations, or he was aspiring to do so or something. But when he came to Ananda, he said, this is the real United Nations. That this actually is what is uniting all people. And you come to Ananda and you'll find all races, you find people who come from different Christianity or Judaism or whatever, different religious backgrounds. And it's not that we say, oh, those are like terrible, leave those forever. We just say, okay, wherever you came from, that's fine. And now start practicing Kriya Yoga. Start making a deeper relationship of your own understanding with God. Yes, tune into the teachings that we have, but we can begin to see kind of how it all comes together, how we're all one planet, one race, and we're all human beings, we're all made in the image and likeness of God, and how we can all cooperate together. This is a very important thing to all of the members of Ananda, that we're here to show the world how we can have world peace, how we can love one another and get along. So it's just a super, super important thing. Hey, I remembered the second part of this time, which is that each one of us also, that we have a responsibility to receive God's light. That can happen in many different ways. And then we have a responsibility to give that to others. So it's so easy to think, well, that's Jesus Christ's job. It's not my job. I just go to church and say I love you, Christ, and then go do whatever I want for the next 6 days of the week. No. And you and I both realize this, that in every moment we have a responsibility to be ever better channels for God's light and to help uplift other human beings. And that can happen in many different ways. It can happen just by smiling at people, by doing good deeds, by being kind, by being calm when everybody else is angry, that type of thing. And so yes, God is in each one of us, but each one of us is learning how to be a better and better channel for uplifting this planet. And it's like everyone who's listening, it's each one of our jobs to uplift this planet. It's so easy to think that, oh, I'm not a politician, I don't sign the
Yes.
laws or whatever, but all connected. And that when each one of us is kind, when each one of us is peaceful, it definitely affects our neighbors and our loved ones, and that radiates out on, and we all have a responsibility to help make this a peaceful and better place.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. And to your point about you saying that, it's like also, so firstly, in another village, the Temple of Light, there's a welcoming of people of different faiths there, together with the areas that which they could pray, that relates to them, with the symbols in the church, in the Temple of Light, and so that's there. And then also the second thing, what I wanted to notice is to point out, was that I was reading one of Swami Kriyananda's books about leadership, principles for leadership and success, and that sort of starts to change your consciousness, same like his chants and the music. And I'll tell you about that story just now. But basically, I've been able to implement that at my work as well. And this is a prime example of how you could take your, let's say, energy from your practices into your outward expression of life, into your work, into various aspects of your life. Because I'm at a point now where I'm actually unofficially in a leadership position at work, and actually help motivate and uplift people as well, and give them the energy and the confidence, and you never start to get jealous about things when you start to reach this realization, because people that's doing better than you financially, you're just happy for them. There's nobody that could take away what you have, which is that joy and that bliss and that meaning and the purpose about being part of a higher reality, and you being part of a change and contributing towards the positivity of humanity and people's lives. So absolutely feel that.
That is so beautiful, and I'm so happy to hear that it's real for you, that you're living it, that your spirituality is integrated into your daily life, and that it's practical, that it's not some just off, I don't know, way over here type of thing that might not work in daily life, but you just gave examples on how this can work for everybody and help them to be peaceful, happy, in whatever situations that life puts them in. And it's just so wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
about.
It's good to hear that. So I now want to just switch over to you a bit. And you also are walking examples, but so many examples that you could give, I know, on the top of your head, but just a few, if you could name on the top of your head. So you've also been on this path for many years now, and you had this vast amount of experience with people and higher realities. And so, as a consequence of that, your work, or the stuff that you've been involved in to improve people's lives. I know we chatted. Before I get to that, sorry. So when we were back from the initiation and we were both traveling from Drakensberg towards Durban for the public talk that we were going to have, and I had music playing in the car, and then you started to tell me about the music that Swami Kriyananda puts out. 4 months later, I downloaded almost all of his chants, and that's in my car. And so I listen to that. I have a Bluetooth speaker in my room that has autobiography of a yogi playing as well. So that's always in my consciousness. And the reason for that is because you start to feel, you feel each time you listen to it, you feel something different. You feel dipped. And yeah, it sort of sets the tone for the day. It sort of like calms you down. Even just today, I was having a chaotic day and just put on some of the chants just to slow down a bit, you know. I was always of the perception that, you know, do multiple things at once and multitask. And then I could see things like start to fall apart because you're doing so many things and you're not succeeding in any of them. You're not achieving about them. So, um, pinpoint laser focus is what I started to realize, and you start to get the job done, and then you're on to the next thing. And just amazing to see Swami Kriyananda's work over the years, together obviously with Paramahansa Yogananda, being able to achieve so many different stuff and set up these brotherhood colonies, Ananda village, and various centers of Ananda, and and it's not an organization as you'd say, as people would say, it's a community of truth seekers, seeking truth. And being able to write so many books and write those poems and to translate books and to write books and to give public talks and still have time for all of this is absolutely amazing. And that's definitely something that you would not be able to achieve if you didn't have that higher energy in books and that. I'm sorry, I deviated from what I was going to ask you, but I had to share that. So yeah, so what I wanted to ask you to share with us is like through the experiences that you've had, some of the interesting projects that you've had. Like I know we spoke at the hall, like you were involved in some solar initiatives in India. But can you just share some of the stuff that you've been in? Because I think you've had a fascinating uh, amount of work that you've done that's benefiting people's lives, whether it be just talking with them or actual projects that you've been doing. So yeah, floor is yours. Just go for it.
Sure. So I helped install a solar project. It was solar panels and two wind turbines in a rural village in India. So this was a village that really did not have reliable power whatsoever. And so we went in and we did the research and figured out where this needed to happen. And we installed this and we brought a village, I don't remember the exact numbers, but possibly 200 people then had reliable 24-hour a day power. And that was a wonderful project to be involved in. And interestingly, where I live now in India, that project is nearby. And I went and visited it, and you know, more important even than the solar panels, the relationships that we made with human beings while we were there serving and you know doing the labor that it took and the math and all everything else to put those in, but all the people there, they remembered us and they were grateful, and that's just, it's a really nice feeling to go back somewhere 10 years later and people remember you and they're grateful for what you've done. So yeah, that was one project that happened on the physical plane. That's a wonderful thing, but more these days I travel kind of all over the world, and going and uplifting people's lives where they feel a sense of purpose, where they're figuring out the highest person that they can be, and giving techniques like Kriya Yoga, that it's super fulfilling for me. I'm also managing this home study course, which is an interesting thing for me because on one level, it's a big job. It's something that demands, you know, seeing that all of these different pieces, all of the different mentors, the advertising, the tech team that we have on this, that everybody's working together, that the students are being served properly, and it is all working, but it's not the type of thing that you just kind of dream up and then it works. The there's certain things in life that just demand a high amount of energy and that we continually look at them and try to make them better and better. And the home study course is one of those things. It's something I'm very happy about. It's again one of those things where I meet a student anywhere in the world. It can be because this reaches out all over the world, and they talk about how much it's changed their lives. And I honestly don't feel that, oh, I changed their life. I feel like I just set up channels for the great ones, for Paramahansa Yogananda to come in, and it's their teachings that come into people's life. In fact, it's Paramahansa Yogananda's consciousness that's coming into people's lives and helping uplift that. I'm gonna go way over here just for a second for fun. You know, before I came to Ananda, I was a stuntman, and people say that if you like the job that you're doing, then every day's a vacation. And I've worked all kinds of jobs in this life, but when I did that job, I saw this is true because it was a fun job. It was something really fun to go to work, and I did backflips off of 10-meter high things
Oh,
with
wow.
swords and fire and all kinds of stuff. And there would be 5,000 people every show down there, like watching, and it was just a lot of fun. But I tell that because if people are just like waking up and feeling they're on this hamster wheel or whatever you called it, like I just have to wake up and eat my breakfast and go do something I hate, like no, you don't. Dream. Don't be afraid to dream. That we again are made in the image and likeness of God. God can do anything through each one of us, and obviously different people have different skills and different amounts of willpower, and I'm not urging people to make crazy like right hand turns or left in their life, like make gradual changes, but don't be afraid to dream. I think so many people, one thing doesn't work out, another thing doesn't work out, and they're like, well, at least I have a job, and whatever, life's just terrible, and they just kind of get in this rut and just go on. And I just want to shake people and wake them up and say, no, you can do all kinds of different things. We can have fun and grow, and life should be joyful on all levels, including the work that we do. Anyways, that's just a few little things that I've done in this incarnation, but my kind of principle is that life should be fun. It really should be fun, and whatever work that I'm doing, that also should be fun, and it should be taking me also towards a higher state of my own evolution. That I seek to be a higher and higher energy being. I want to have more energy of the universe flow through me in what I do outwardly as well as inwardly in my meditations. I want to continue to build my willpower more and more strongly, my ability to concentrate, as you were talking about, and the different jobs that we can have can help us learn how to do that. And then the whole thing's fun. It's like we're growing into who we should be.
Yeah, I think that very eloquently said, and I think you summed it up pretty nicely about what I was going to ask. So thank you for putting it so easily and making my job much easier. Definitely, I do believe that it should be fun, and you should try or what I think people should try and do is to disrupt that cycle and not say that you're on this hamster wheel. You gotta want to make a change and want to do things differently, and you gotta be open to new possibilities and new ideas, and that comes with being mindful. And I think that level of maturity that you get as you progress on that spiritual path. I think this conversation was a really nice practical example about what we've discussed, or the teachings as well, because it's practical life in lessons. It's not something theoretical that you can't see. It's things and micro things that you see in your life every day happen. And although you may not see those changes in yourself, when you look back again, as I said, about your life a year ago, 2 years ago, you'd see how you've sort of grown and taken a new leap forward in that direction. So really, really profound stuff. I think from my side, I'm really happy that I had this chance to talk to you. I've been wanting to speak with you for a long time. As everybody could hear, you're really busy with a lot of initiatives and projects that you're busy with. I'm going to hand over to you to just conclude and to just say whatever's on your mind. Any advice you have for listeners, maybe for people who's wanting to seek, or not even just wanting to seek, but people that's just wanting to become a better person in life, and maybe people that's going through challenges in their lives, people that have whatever crisis, whether it be domestic or mental health challenges, and however. So, what's your advice that you would offer to them? And yes, just on your side.
Sure. If anyone out there is having particular challenges, please know that God will never give you more than you can handle. And in the middle of it, it seems like, I don't know, it seems like He's giving me more than I can handle. But He or she, whatever, God never will give you more than you can handle. And it's all in the end for our own good. I'll tell you a quick little story that came from my Hindi class last night. And in this, man spends 20 years saving up. In India it's rupees, whatever you could think, dollars or rand or whatever you want to think, but he ends up saving, a few dollars every day for 20 years, and eventually he has enough to build a house, and that's basically his life savings, and he builds this house, and he's getting ready to move into it, and everything's all set, and the whole neighborhood, all his friends, family, everybody's so happy for him. And then right before he moves in, an earthquake happens and the entire building collapses. And generally in India, that if there's some celebration, people bring sweets and give sweets to everybody to celebrate. So the day that he was supposed to move in, he invites all the friends and family there, and he brings sweets. And everyone's thinking, this guy's gone a little bit crazy. His entire life savings is gone. This house is collapsed. Why is he celebrating? Why did he call us out here to celebrate? And he says, everyone come near. That isn't this so wonderful? It's so wonderful we can all be together. And one of his friends says, are you okay? Maybe you're under a lot of strain here. And he says, of course I'm okay. That imagine that had I moved in any bit earlier into this house, that my entire family would have been killed, that we all would have been killed, and we're all here, we're alive, we have one another, and there's always a positive way that we can look at life, or a negative way. And it's important for us to constantly look at the positive side. I'll give one more example. There's a saint named Padre Pio, a wonderful movie called Man of Miracles. Highly recommend everyone watches that. And in this movie, this is a story that Padre Pio tells, but he tells of a mother who is crocheting or knitting or weaving. I don't know that kind of stuff, so I don't know exactly what it's called. And so she has a boy who's on a small stool sitting down and looking at the reverse side of this thing. And he says, "Mother, what are you making? It's so ugly." And she doesn't say anything, but she just quietly turns it over to where he can see the proper side. And it's like that in life, that we're the little boy. We look around and we think, this is so messed up. God, do you know what you're doing? Like, this is really all terrible. But we will learn how to put on kind of a new kind of glasses and see life in a positive perspective, see it in the way that the Divine Mother sees it, where she knows what she's doing. And when we get that new way of looking at life, that we see everything in its proper perspective, and we see that everything that's coming to us is for our good. And I know that's really hard to believe when we're in difficult times, but usually when we look back 5 years later, 10 years later, 20, whatever, we say, oh, I learned this, I grew from that, I ended up not going in that direction because of this, and we are grateful. So why not be grateful today? Why not be grateful right now, even in the difficult times, and give gratitude to God, help God, ask God to help you understand why these things are coming. And it's so important in life to just stay positive and surround yourself also with other positive people. There's people whose energy is spinning downward, and it's negative, and it's a magnetism, and it will pull our energy down. And there's people whose energy is constantly spinning upward, and no matter what, they seem to be happy. And when I first came to Ananda, I thought, this isn't possible. How can these people be so happy and happy all of the time? But I realized it's by all of us sticking together. It's by what they're doing, practicing Kriya Yoga all the time, not all the time, but morning and evening, whatever, often, and by serving, by getting out of the self. If someone listening today is in depression, go think of somebody else. There's somebody else on the planet who's having a harder time than you right now. Go find that person, do one good deed, help them come up a little bit, and you'll get outside of yourself. Get out in the sun, go for a run, do things, have fun in life. Don't just sit in your room and just be sad all day long. That life is too short for that. And just know, if I have to end with something, I want everyone to know that God loves you. God loves you so very, very much. God, and it's not some impersonal, like the sun just shines on everyone. God loves you like your mother loves you, and even more deeply than that. God personally cares about each human being on the planet and wants the absolute best for us and is giving opportunities for us, but we have to look for those opportunities. And when it's there, take it and move yourself up to the next highest level, and then God will give you another opportunity. And if we don't take those opportunities, God still loves you. And I want you to know that. I want you to feel loved, because I feel loved by God and by the great ones, and it's a different kind of love, but it's a type of love that's wonderful. It's very hard to explain, but I want everyone else to begin to open themselves to that, to explore, to search for that, and ultimately one day everybody will find this true love. You know, this spiritual path actually is a divine romance where we fall in love with love, and God is love, and there's no true religion out there that says God is hate. And that I think they can all agree on that we should all love each other. So I wish each listener, viewer, the best of luck on your journey as you find God, and then I hope that you also will share that love with all human beings everywhere. So I think that's plenty out of me. Thank you for having me today, Devendran. This has been very, very wonderful. I enjoy our relationship, our connection, and I don't know, just I feel we both have a duty to spread the love and just help people. So
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Nayaswami Shankara. I have a profound amounts of respect and appreciation for you. Thank you for your time, for sharing your message with our viewers and listeners. And I'm really excited about the stuff that we'll be working on going forward. And
thank you.
thank you for your night here today.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Hearing that sound.